Welcome back to the uncertain future of Defiant Horizon. Piecing, puzzling, figuring, estimating. Find truth. Meaning. Unveil. But beware, even the most sound and total answers lead to only more to be discovered. Number 5. In the Wake. 10 years ago, Union Airways Flight 665 over the Pacific Ocean. Clouds, puffs of white vapor and dust, like ethereal icebergs in a calm, serene blue sky coasted by as Monica looked out of the window of the airplane. There was something special about seeing them from up in the air. They felt so different than when she looked at them from the ground. It was the first time since her family had left London for New Avalonia that Monica had been on an aircraft of any kind. So she made the most of the experience, just watching the clouds for the first hour of the 6-hour flight to Hashishima. However, now she was bored and hungry, but mostly bored. She decided to turn on the latest game she had been playing and switched her wrist console on. The holo projectors flashed and slowly started to form a display in front of her as the small lenses spun and whirred. After a couple minutes, the holo projectors had fully warmed up and the display was ready. So she loaded up Skeleton Crew, a narrative puzzle adventure game about solving what happened to the crew of a mining ship through only the crew logs. Monica felt like she was getting close to solving the mystery, but the crew logs had been getting more and more bizarre, making her question her assumptions. She found it difficult to focus on the game, though. In fact, she spent a while just staring blankly at the bleak title screen's haunting starscape. She had left in such a hurry. Hadn't even packed anything but what she could carry in her backpack. Suddenly, Monica realized she hadn't even figured out a place to live when she got to Hashishima. She laughed to herself. It seems so silly to forget something so essential. But, well, once she got her acceptance letter from Blue Spire this morning, she just had to leave. Monica had to start her new life. She had to get away. Some might call her crazy for such a drastic move, walking out of her parents' house with barely anything in her pockets or bag, leaving everything behind. She didn't even say goodbye to anyone. But, well, once she got her acceptance letter from Blue Spire that morning, she just had to leave. Monica had to start her new life. She had to get away. Some might call her crazy for such a drastic move, walking out of her parents' house with barely anything in her pockets or bag, leaving pretty much everything behind. She didn't even say goodbye to anyone. But she preferred a break like this, messy and jagged as it was. She'd make her apologies later, the one she cared to, at least. Her new life lay across the sea, and she wouldn't wait even a moment to begin it. She'd always been called impulsive. Monica preferred to think of herself as quick to act. Once she made her mind up about something, she didn't see any reason to not pursue it relentlessly until it was done. After all, if she didn't, wasn't she just wasting her time? On the subject of wasting time, she found herself increasingly annoyed at how slowly the plane was moving. Sure, 6 hours beat the old passenger jet 10 to 12 hour flight time to Hashishima from New Avalonia, but even 6 hours felt positively sluggish compared to what could be achieved with a Luke 6 Kato drive. Monica wondered why all craft were not outfitted with the tech that could carry a vessel past the speed of light. With that, a journey like hers would only last a matter of seconds. Of course, now that she gave it some thought, she was unsure what the consequences would be to opening a transdimensional corridor in atmosphere. She didn't really know, so she cleared the game from the display and looked into the issue. From what she could find, there was little more than theory at the moment. Apparently, no one had been brazen enough to try it without at least trying to do the math. The leading theory of what would happen by Dr. Reith Gerrans of MIT was that the opening of the Luke 6 Kato corridor could possibly suck in gases in the atmosphere at near or even superluminal speeds. This could create a suction force so drastic that even buildings and the ground itself could be dragged in. And that was all assuming the spatial distortions from the opening of the corridor didn't crack the Earth's crust like an egg. Monica smirked. Now that was an interesting premise for a story. Life in a world broken after such a catastrophic event. Well, both cases were enough to put her idea to rest, though she wasn't exactly happy about it. She felt her seat shake as the plane must have passed through some turbulence and... Dock C-77, Port Island, Hashishima City, Hashishima. Friday, August 10th, 2035. Friday, August 10th, 2035. You have arrived at your destination. Please exit the vehicle at your convenience. She heard a soft masculine voice say. Her head shot up, taking in the strange environment of the back of a Taxico automated taxi. Slowly she remembered hailing, then getting into the vehicle, telling the driver AI to go to the docks, but why? And then Monica shook her head, trying to clear the fog of sleep away. She must have dozed off during the trip. She'd pulled an all-nighter trying to catch up on what she could find on the attack on the Byako building. That's when... That's right. There was an attack and explosion at the docks. A suspected syndicate dock in particular. Captain Gambini hadn't called for her to come, but when she saw the reports that the attack was supposedly done by a lone masked madman, one who couldn't be killed, she knew that this had to be a special crimes case. Had the Crimson Tengu stepped up his attacks? Monica stepped out of the automated taxi at the main entrance to Dock C-77. A thick, almost choking curtain of humid, hot air greeted her. Not the greatest, but nonetheless warm welcome. Just not the kind that anyone would really want. A police hollow barricade had been established, shielding the scene from view to discourage press and curious onlookers from crowding around the site. They were never entirely successful at that. She rolled her eyes at the gaggle of reporters and other news workers huddled further down the road. Dozens of drones flooded the air, though none of them were allowed into the airspace above the actual crime scene. There was too much risk of contaminating the evidence. 3 men stood at the entrance to the dock. 2 were uniformed officers with long guns. They would be the ones keeping watch out for trespassers and press who were a little too rash. The third was a tall man in a crisp gray suit with pale skin and short brown hair. He held what looked to be a drink carrier with 2 lidded paper cups. She didn't recognize him, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. He even waved. "Oh, Lieutenant Ichinose?" he asked. She cringed. Just Monica. What are you doing here? Who are you? One of the guys standing guard chuckled. We told you she wouldn't like it if you used her title. Right, that you did. He looked to the others and nodded, then back to her. That's what they told me, but I figured... Well, I don't really know. Monica sighed, crossing her arms. She was much too tired for this. You still haven't answered me. Oh yeah. Sorry. I'm Detective Terry Cross, NYPD. Well, until yesterday at least. After Miss Marshall called my office, I got on the first flight over, he said, scratching the back of his head. What on earth are you talking about? Why are you here? Monica asked. Detective Cross laughed nervously. Well, I'm your partner, of course. That's what Miss Marshall said, at least. Monica stared at the man for a moment, then shook her head, stepped away and pulled up a display on her holo console. After a moment, Amanda's face came into view. Wow, you look terrible. Forget to sleep last night? Care to tell me why I have a New York detective saying he's my partner standing in front of me? Monica said, a bit harsher than she meant to. Amanda smiled. I thought you could use some help, so I grabbed you someone who is likely just as underrated in their environment as you. How did you know I was going to be here at the docks for him to meet me? Monica asked, trying to keep her frustration in check, though she could feel the corner of her left eye twitch. I didn't. In fact, I didn't even know he made it to Hashishima yet, Amanda said with a shrug. Monica looked over to Terry, considering, then back to Amanda. Please clear things like this with me first. We'll talk about this later. Amanda smirked. Of course. She turned her head and Monica thought she heard Bato's gruff voice. I need to go. I'll let you know what happens when I meet Bastion tonight to finalize this little arrangement on Citadel. She shrugged. Funny enough, he's already up there on business while I'm passing through, so a meeting worked out quite nicely. I'll be getting on my flight here shortly. Heading off-world? Monica asked. Yes. The Horizon launches next week for her maiden voyage. I need to see to the arrangements. Then she grinned. Besides, I'm not missing being there for our first true interstellar exploration ship's flight or anything. Find out what happened at the dock. I'll see what strings I can pull to get you access to the Byaka scene. If anything, Cross should be able to go there, since he wasn't involved in the firefight, and then the screen went blank. Monica sighed, rubbed her eyes, then looked back to Terry. Alright, we'll figure out the details later. Right now we have work to do. If I may, Monica, I thought I might accompany you in your investigation here, then try and go over to the Byako site and collect data. Since you were involved in the shooting there, they won't let you in on the investigation, right? Monica's eyes narrowed. Right. How do you know about that? It's a long flight from New York City, and I like to know what I'm walking into, who I'm working with, that sort of thing. Then he looked down at his hand and jumped as if he'd forgotten he had been holding the drink carrier. Oh right, I got us coffee. I figured you might need a good cup of joe. She blinked. I appreciate that, but it's from this place called Tachibanaya? Don't know if I'm saying that right. Their house Lemeri and peaberry blend. No cream, no sugar, he interrupted. The owner, I think her name was Keiko, said I should get some of the cinnamon swirl muffins too. Monica crossed her arms. To say she was perplexed would have been a sore understatement. How did you know about Tachibana? Oh, I always look into local favorites on Current when I go somewhere new. Where are people going for coffee? Where they go for pizza, so on and so forth. Tachibana, did I say it right this time? Seemed like a hidden gem. Especially when you dig into the location tagging for how often and how long people who go there stay. Judging from the menu and the user reviews, it look to be a quality establishment that cares about what they serve just as much as their customers. It's rare to find that these days, Terry said casually, then shrugged. You can get cheap, mass-produced, even imitation garbage anywhere. Something made with care and love is always worth it. Did I make a bad call? It doesn't answer how you knew how I liked my coffee, Monica said, narrowing her eyes again. He scratched the back of his head nervously. Now that was a bit of a guess, really. Given your psych profile, reputation, how you write your reports, I had a hunch that you were the type to prefer an unalloyed experience to something made with an artist's touch. There's a lot of sensory details in your reports. What you smell, see, the feel of things. Seemed like the right call. He handed her the paper cup. I know disposable cups provide an inferior drinking experience, but I assumed if it were a choice between good coffee and no coffee, good coffee should most likely win. Monica anxiously took the coffee. Every cell in her body needed her to guzzle the miraculous liquid immediately. Unalloyed? Terry laughed nervously again, even blushing somewhat. I suppose it shows I started college as a literature student. She shook her head and took a long sip from the cup. It was lukewarm, but nonetheless a welcome taste. A wave of energy washed over her, clearing away some of the fog of exhaustion. All right. Not bad, Cross. I'm impressed. Now hand over a muffin before I take a bite out of you instead. Terry chuckled and extracted one of those marvelous muffins from a bag and put it into her hand. It had been slightly squashed in the bag, but that didn't impact the taste. Monica practically swallowed it whole, not realizing just how hungry she was until he had brought up the topic of muffins. Perhaps you'd like mine as well? I don't usually eat breakfast, so you're welcome to it. Do you usually make first impressions like this? She replied, holding out her hand. He placed a second muffin in it, and it suffered much the same fate as the first. The burst of cinnamon sugary bliss was enough to make her head spin after the double dose. She didn't care. Her stomach felt practically cavernous, and she'd take whatever she could get. Of course, Keiko's muffins were always a treat. I try to at least. I find coffee and baked goods make nearly any occasion better, he replied. Amen to that, Monica said, taking another sip of coffee. Terry's eyebrows raised as he took a sip of his own coffee. Wow, this is fantastic. She smirked, then nodded. All right, follow my lead. Do try to keep up. I'm not sure what all Amanda told you, but we will not be welcome here. You can count on me, ma'am, he said with a salute. Monica rolled her eyes and stepped through the hollow barrier. She noticed the two guards snorting a laugh as they entered. They were probably joking about the interaction between the two. The scene of utter desolation that had been obscured by the barrier was even worse than she had imagined. This was a dock? Cross said in what sounded like disbelief from behind her. She had to agree. The expanse looked more like a war zone than a dock. What once were most likely warehouses were little more than heaps of charred and twisted metal. The remains of the container ship at the other end of the dock was not much better, but was, at least, somewhat recognizable as a ship. About a dozen officers were scattered across the area, as well as several units from Rescue Guard who were kitted out in fire suppression gear. The fire was long gone, by the looks of things. They were probably assessing the damage and cause of the explosions that caused them. Monica spied a canopy tent that had been set up a short walk away from the entrance, where Captain Gambini looked to be briefing a team of officers. She looked back to Terry and said, "Find out what you can, collect data, samples, try to get as clear a picture as possible what happened. Don't rely on what others have found. I'll check in with the captain." Terry gave her a thumbs up and turned to the closest heap of burned metal. Once he was out of earshot, Monica whispered, "Ayaka, see what you can find on him." Ayaka responded back, "Understood." She turned back to walk to the tent. The captain's harsh, stone-hewn features hardened when he spotted her joining the group. "I've concluded that there were no survivors, save for that one guy. All dock workers, guards, and even sailors on the ship were killed either in the blast or with swords, knives, what have you. Captain, are we inclined to believe this guy that one unkillable man did all this?" one of the detectives, Reese, asked. The captain glared at Monica for a moment, then turned to Reese. "We assume nothing. Find answers, that's all. Now get to work," he said, waving a hand to the crowd. As the group split up, going to their assignments, Monica walked up to the table where Captain Gambini stood. A couple officers spared her curious looks as she strode. However, they were nothing like the boiling glower from the captain. Her smirk did nothing to cool the look as she spoke. "Let me guess, you're chuffed to bits to see me." "The hell are you doing here? I don't remember asking for special crimes," he replied. His aide brought him something, but Monica couldn't make it out from her position. "A witness says a single masked man did this, one who couldn't be killed, and you don't think this might belong with special crimes. I'm sure the chief told you about the arrangement." She shifted her weight to her right side. The captain swatted dismissively in the air, shaking his head. "Sweet talk your way into getting out of trouble again, and now you think you can just go and do whatever you please?" Monica crossed her arms over her chest. She'd expected this. Even just standing in front of him was an affront to his authority. As far as he was concerned, she should be suspended at this very moment, if not outright fired. Instead of pushing, she decided to just stare at the man. He didn't have the standing to make her leave, not after Amanda got involved. Monica didn't know how much the woman had paid Chief Collins or what kind of favor she had hanging over the company owner Anton Bastian, but it was enough that, as Amanda had put it, special crimes should be able to investigate any case with reasonable suspicion of involvement of enhanced persons. He stared back at her, eyes searing with barely contained anger, but after a moment he sighed, shook his head again, and growled, "This is too big for special crimes to take care of alone." "I agree. I'm just concerned about the possibility that an enhanced was involved," she said. "Investigate. See if your Fox or whatever had a hand in this. If not, I want you out of here. If so, we'll talk about assisting you," the captain growled. Monica smiled, wider than she usually would, just to rub it in. "Well, I suppose I'd better get to work." "Whatever," Captain Gambini said in return, shooing her away with a wave of his hand. Monica turned back to the desolate site and looked around for her new partner. She found Terry in a nook around the corner of another warehouse, knelt beside some partially burned pile of something. There were no hollow markers that she could see, so forensics hadn't made it to this spot. "What have you got?" Cross whipped his head around, smiled, and said, "Oh, Lieutenant, sorry, Monica." He nervously scratched the back of his head again. Took some samples of soot and other residue from the warehouses so he can see what kind of propellants might have been used, or what may have been burned. I also have a Gopher AI searching for archival information and blueprints to reconstruct how the dock looked before, so we can analyze the blast pattern. It should help us understand what kind of explosives were used, along with the analysis from the fire investigation." "Good thought," Monica said, considering. Terry continued, "They're still compiling the duty roster for last night to see how many were involved in the attack. I'd wager the dock contract's a private military corporation for security, judging from the kind of kit the guards had. Automatic small arms, decent body armor, if a bit outdated. At least roughly matching gear, military-grade optics, encrypted radios. Probably a Pacific Alliance Corp if I had to guess." "That would make sense." This is a suspected syndicate doc. They always keep mercs on the payroll, she said, looking over his shoulder to see what he had been examining. It looked like a body, half burned with a vicious cut across the throat, but she couldn't see past the neck from behind him. I surmise from your emphasis on suspected that this was more of an open secret than anything, the detective asked. Monica nodded, looking around at the sheer destruction again. She needed to talk with the survivor. If Gambini was directing the others to ignore the man, she had to at least hear what they had to say, not just secondhand. Sure, it was hard to believe that one man could do all of this, but then again, if this person really couldn't be killed, well, what couldn't they do? This one isn't one of the gods nor a Darkwalker, Cross said, drawing her attention back to him. What do you mean? She asked. He pointed to the immediately recognizable badge of the Hashishima police force on the body's chest, what remained of it. It had been obscured before when she had looked over his shoulder. A uniformed officer. But who? I don't recognize him. Of course, if half the man's face hadn't been burned away, she might have been able to. I just pulled the data from his PIID chip. Officer Miguel Sanchez, Port Island Precinct, Patrol Division, Cross said, looking back to her. Monica nodded. I don't really know any of the port crew. It's one of the quieter posts, since they mostly just check in on the docks to see if anything is going on. Maybe do the occasional inspection with the trade authority. Really, with all the security that companies hire for their docks, you'd have to be pretty foolish to pull something on one of them. Seems to me that someone did. Wonder what Sanchez was here for. Could he have gotten wind of the attack? The detective asked. She shook her head. Unlikely. He'd have reported it before diving in to get backup. I'm willing to bet he was here for something off the books. She clicked her tongue. They met eyes for a moment. She hadn't noticed those green eyes before. He knew exactly what she meant. It was another open secret that people could be bought, even those who seemed especially virtuous. Add to the fact that the Hashishima police force was staffed, equipped, and operated by the largest defense contractor and private military corporation on the planet, Bastion Defense Solutions, and you run the risk of having officers who are even easier to bribe, since they are effectively mercenaries with law enforcement privileges, even at the top of the ladder, like Chief Collins. Well, regardless, this just became much more serious with an officer involved. Monica sighed and started to walk back towards the tent. Keep working. I have to report this to the captain. I'll see when we can question the witness too while I'm at it. Weaving through a few groups of forensics workers from Veritag, Monica made it back to the tent. Captain Gambini seemed less than pleased to see her again so soon. Captain, it looks like one of the bodies is that of a port officer from the port precinct, she said. He cursed, bowing his head for a moment. Well, I guess that answers that question at least. I heard they had someone missing. Guess we know what happened now. Looks like his throat was cut, which falls in line with the nature of wounds you described before with the other victims, Monica said. Captain Gambini sat down in a metal folding chair and sighed. Ichinose, does the name Crimson Tengu mean anything to you? Tengu, yes, he's one of the enhanced persons of interest I've been gathering information on. He only uses knives, swords, and the like, so that, at least, fits his MO. Though I don't think I've ever seen him make an attack on this scale. The biggest case I've ever seen attributed to him involved 3 victims, I believe. Monica then sighed and crossed her arms over her chest. All of this, by the way, you would know already if you just read my reports and didn't just toss them in the recycling bin. This brought back the burning in the captain's eyes, but only just for a moment. He, at least, seemed to be trying to be civil. She felt perhaps that she should do the same. No more comments like her last, for the time being at least. Well, our survivor and only witness is now saying that this Crimson guy did all this and left him alive, the captain said. He looked away, apparently refusing to make eye contact. He was barely talking before, now he won't stop saying this guy's name. She nodded, feeling as though a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. They both knew what this meant. He'd have to work with her now. I'd like to speak with him, right away if possible. We've got him back at HQ, Infirmary Room 17, Captain Gambini said. Was he injured? Captain shook his head. No, just shaken. Guy just saw his coworkers die. The first officer on site after the explosion said she found him laughing. Hell, even put him in cuffs thinking he did it. Alright, I'll leave my partner here to help coordinate efforts. I need to talk to this guy, Monica said, and she brought up a holo display to call a VTOL craft to her from HQ. Captain Gambini crossed his arms over his chest this time. Since when do you have a partner? Next time on Defiant Horizon. Oh, ha, bloody ha. A man blows his guts on his boss once, and now I'm that guy. You have the biggest defense contractor and private military corporation in the world by the balls. And you're going to let go for a fairy tale? How does the old bear always seem to know what's going on? Did you tell him we were coming? Mom? I hope you enjoyed today's show. What did you think of the episode? Leave a comment down below to let me know what you thought, or leave a question for my new monthly Q&A episode. Before you go, please be sure to leave a like and share the show with a friend. It makes a massive difference in helping with discovery of the show, but also lets me know what you'd like to see more of. Check out the link tree below in the description to see all the different ways you can enjoy the show, or how to connect on social media and Discord. Special thanks to Fulfill Your Destiny for being a paid subscriber on Substack. Your contribution makes this show possible, and I cannot thank you enough for your support. If you would like to be featured in the show's special thanks, as well as other perks, please check out my Substack link in my link tree. Words cannot express how much I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to see what I've been working on, and I truly hope to see you again soon. Until next time, good fortune, good health, and good day.